It's almost as if our heart is programming our human body being 1/4 of our relevant spirit self. And the heart is like an inner, deep spiritual nexus highway for how the will of, your predecessors have contributed over the millennia to stabilize the human being in it of itself and to have an actual possibility for, whatever, ascension is relative to you. Because how the human being has the chakras that it has, 9 on the solidified material human template, respectively, and equating that to like the human design body graph, respectively and neutrally. The heart chakra plays a significant role in just the connection of everything. It's a subtle material feminine chakra, the heart. I mean, all the chakras are feminine and masculine, but within the different dualities of themselves and how they interrelate, they lean towards, it being more yin or yang, but respectively, they're both, all the chakras are both yin and yang. And how the heart is, how all the 9 chakras, from the crown, the vision chakra, third eye, ajna, whatever. So there's the crown, the ajna, the throat chakra, the G center, the soul canal heart, and your spiritual, transitions and transits and journeys and travels. Your heart chakra, your solar plexus chakra, and your spleen chakra, your sacral chakra, and your root ground basis chakra. 9 chakras. All of those chakras, which are already instilled within each of the new human templates, regardless of its other tinkering, at its basic default mechanism, spiritual manufacturing, human mechanistic like level, were instilled with 9 chakras, and those 9 chakras are actually having a very different contextual reaction within how the 9 chakras in ourselves are adapting and approaching and being from and coming out of different types of changes and mutations. So as the chakras are changing within us, they're we're looking at them differently, and we're upgrading them differently, perhaps, and we're seeing how they are relevant to like other different types of niches, other different types of contexts of differentiation and inner, coagulation, or inner pretty much reciprocation, and like, I guess, like esoteric fornication. It's something is fornicating, something is brewing within how we're looking at our chakras differently, how all of our chakras, new basis default templates, are growing through these times of change, and how they were a product of like, millennia of different types of evolution, and how they have, secret nuanced connections to like, other things, other planets, and other planets being secret nexus beacons for other portals of, a higher, perspective, pursuit of consciousness, and those other outside external planets having secret correspondences and correlations with our inner chakras, as they all have their own, macro and micro journeys towards different trajectories of solidification and more, lesser solidification, seeing the difference between, the different, how the different channels of life and the different contexts of life, how they in tandem, project externally, and then how they interproject internally in different ways, and us having like a new, crown and, ajna chakra, all like, and throat chakra, the top 3 chakras, locating to, it being something of, even if it is defined or not, to some ratio, all the chakras within you, they're receptive, they're receivers, they're transmitters. It's like, but if you're defined, it's like you're coming from that, avenue and that nature, that archetypical nature of the attribute of consciousness, and how it's more like, definitive, more defined, more projected, more well-rounded, more of like being with that way. So it's like, you could ask like, what's the difference between an open center and a defined center? Well, your body's manufactural physiological template is more attuned and akin to something being within a different spiritual environment, spatial, dichotomy and environmental factor, attributional type of, place of setting or setting of within different positionings in space. You could say that if you have a defined chakra, you're coming more from that like avenue of an approach of a different type of archetypal, consciousness that's expressing itself and externalizing itself towards solidity, external masculine solidity, internal feminine liquidability. And within that different, because all the different states are differentiated infinitely, obviously. So it's beyond like, even the basic setting, because it like, a lot, like I'm recognizing what's like really like readily shareable, and it like all of these are just clues, all of these are just pieces. We got a piece of the same information, we're using it differently, as we ourselves are pieces of Godhead itself. So it's like we're all like all these different types of contexts of pieces, us being a piece of God in of that of itself, where we're expressing God in like based on obviously the different, filtrational systems of us that have been not necessarily divided but just been compressed and suppressed, and looking at as something that has been dissected that could be insected for a constructive manner, to seeing the wholeness within all of our chakras, and seeing like how the heart is it's representing our ego, the heart is representing our will, the heart is representing our pride, the heart is representing our bravery, the heart is representing our will, the heart is representing our recollection, the heart is representing like the recollection of like, you know and how we have tended to our shadow bodies and how we have tended to our emotional bodies, and not necessarily needing to prove it, just feeling it within yourself of like what work has been done over lifetimes for me to have some type of, emotional homeostasis or emotional equilibrium. It's leaning towards the constructive insight, living that in different times of the constructive, insights of that the predecessors have already laid down for us, because we're just like we're following two different worlds at the same time. We're following, like, we're caught in between two dragons pretty much, and one dragon is like, just illusion, and the other dragon is clarity on a bigger perspective level, on a macro level within the macro, because it's macro, and macro, and that macro is, pretty much like, I guess, the seventh, eighth, and ninth dimension is also entertaining the fourth, fifth, and sixth. So it's in between that. That's what the macro is. Because like the seventh, eighth, and ninth dimension, they're also like from a top-down perspective, they're the ones, and the fourth, fifth, and sixth are being inhabited within the seventh, eighth, and ninth, but it's reversed to us on a material level. So like even the seventh, eighth, and ninth are re-evolving as they're newly relating to the fourth, fifth, and sixth, because we're in between those two different, bigger sectors as well. So that's the macro, and the macro is just the beyond the seventh, eighth, and ninth, just on a small casual context level. The micro is the 1, 2, and 3rd, and the macro is pretty much a little bit of all of them, and how we're relating in that mutable free space, and how like, the chaos has been stabilized in certain, attributes within the cusps of all the signs. So it's the subtle astrology, which is like the shadow aspect to, the basic, astrology, or like, it being in reverse, the daytime astrology, that's the illusion. The nighttime astrology, everything's backwards. The nighttime is a different spiritual daytime. So within that spiritual daytime, the shadows of astrology, it's a truth in a different realm, and within that truth, this aspect of this elusive character within the surface level external realm, Maya, already been debunked 2.5 years ago in an underground podcast. We're seeing how we're pretty like, for my clarity and simplification, I'm just overcoming ignorance, and I'm just sharing what I can, because quote unquote in some context all is self until it's not, because there's just those nuances of, energetic subtle differentiation. And what I mean by that is there are other things that are being birthed that are not necessarily our initiation, and since it's not our initiation, we shouldn't have to take responsibility for something that's not ours, you know. But going back to the heart being like, the heart is kind of like, I feel like it's like a yin yang spiritual bridge of like, of how, you know, the pre-self before we were human, it's just how it got impacted by so many different things. And that yin part of ourselves, because I look at the G center and the heart center in the nine chakra template of the HD body graph, or the HD human template of how it's, you know, encapsulating the nine chakras. You could say like some like energies of like macro consciousnesses are prominent in certain chakras based on where they like, you know, where their elemental, you know, alchemy of themselves has made something of themselves in some other realm. Because I'm just looking at the correlations and the correspondences of how like in human design certain chakras have certain gates, and those certain gates align to certain godheads, and within those certain godheads, it's just a different type of like representation. And it's kind of like it's kind of a, and it could, and maybe, you know, it's up to you and how you're going to ultimately transcend this. Because like when they say human design and gene keys, it's all Metatronic coding. Like you could interpret that however you want. You could interpret that as detrimental or constructive, but it's just the passing of what the human template is, as far as like a code format level. Because we're not necessarily privy to the knowledge that, the astrology and how it like kind of like evolved over the 2,000 years to 4,000 to 6,000 years. That has evolved in tandem with the human, because astrology does explain everything on a subtle level, but we just don't know it because we're looking at it and we're coming at it from different angles and aspects of consciousness. But it still connects to everything and it's relating to everything. We're just like, astrology is just showing like where our elemental powers and talents and gifts are, and what we're a specialist at. And what we're a specialist at is like, we're all like being with the wind information differently. We're all being with the transformation essence of the fires differently, and our body being more akin to this. Some of us get like some of us get more like, akin to the ocean, and being, that of a just going towards like some sort of like paradoxical, like, solidification. And, seeing like, the freeze points of all the elements to kind of stabilize themselves like on a higher octave level, seeing how the fire, the wind, and the water, they triangulate to make the earth itself on a casual level. And as the earth gets created in itself, then we have a chance to slow down and experience what earth is. That's the whole point of time slowing down, to experience what our higher self has like dawned on, as far as like why it is what it is. So if like so if we have a whole different interpretation of like, Lilith and all that stuff, you could say on a subtle slick level, because like you could already hear that, like, you could already hear that the root chakra equates to Mars. You could already hear that the root chakra equates to Earth. You could already hear that the root chakra equates to Saturn. You could already hear that the root chakra equates to all the planets, just in a different alchemy configuration of how they're like at their strong points or their lesser, far distant points from where their original home is. Because wherever a planet's original home is and how far they stray from the course of this material realm, solar system astrology, galactic astrology, planetary astrology, basic astrology, modern astrology, is seeing astrology is pointing towards the in-between realms of what's externally a material realm, the solar system, and how the outer planets on a reverse level are the inner planets for the spiritual world, and how we are like far away from that, and we're the from the bottom up, we're from the material opposing the spiritual. that's a bottom up level. So every opposition, in essence, you could look at it as a gravitational, whirlwind factor, as, you know, the materialization of the earth and all its configurations and how it has stabilized itself, solidified itself to have a gravitational pull to uphold all the elements in their own, field. That's consciousness inside out, is the earth in itself. And as the earth in itself is like within a different non-duality field of the energies and the non-energies, in between the earth and what it's ultimately contained in, on a default level, is the sun. So as the earth is like pointing to some sort of energetic darkness, and the sun is pointing towards, and the earth is kind of like, polarizing itself in the material realm, and the solar system being its own microcosmic egg, and the earth being pulled towards a certain polarity, and then from, the earth being pulled from this non-dual higher sun, it's creating a sun, because the sun and the earth are always like opposing each other in a different solar system format. And as that's happening, what an opposition could mean is something that's just in the darkness and something that's being projected. So any opposition is just like, what's really being projected and highlighted, and what are we focusing on? The opposition is creating just a unique friction. It's creating a unique energetic tension. It's tensifying something because it's polarized. So it's like, when there's an opposition or polarization, the question that's being asked is like, what's really in leaning towards material darkness, not ignorance, material energetic darkness, which is the unconscious body, and which one's leaning towards, conscious light, and how the light is a duality of falsehood and illusion, just the mirror of something else, and just truth being misinterpreted, the light, what's being projected in duality, the sun. And within the sun and the earth having different transitions and orbits around all the other planets, and how they came from the top down planets, the moon is created from how the earth is being pulled into material reality. The sun is being, having like something that's following it on a reverse engineer astronomical mechanical level. And within those different orbits around the higher outer, quote unquote, outer planets, the moon is being created on how like the projector visualization energy caster, the sun, is just being highlighted on what's being projected through duality of how the material dark chamber of the planetary body and our human bodies are in, an opposition of what's being projected and what's really inside us on an instinctive raw level. That's something of an opposition. And within that opposition, it's like Aquarius is in the earth sign. So that's one casual material tier. It's a material tier on how it's an as below to a different tier of an as above. Because how I look at as above, so below, I don't look at it as just like black and white. I look at it as like black, white, black, white, black, white, black, white, where it's just like there's different tiers. There's always like a higher macro, and there's a different type of micro. Because as above, so below, I don't look at it linearly. I look at it as something of a non-linear. And when you look at that as a non-linear, then you could see like how like, the age of Aquarius it's like an in-between realm of the solar system and the galaxy, and how the earth is in Aquarius and the sun is in Leo right now. We're in the energetic revolution of conscious mutation. Everything's being mutated, everything's being transformed, and since everything's being transformed, our body is feeling it. Earth in Aquarius, we're being one with the radical change of the shift in how the solar system is shifting in the galaxy, respectively. And Earth being in Aquarius, that correlates to the Godhead Kali, or the goddess Kali. And within that, there's just a subtle nuance on how